This is my second attempt at a bacon grease crust based pie, or casserole in this case, and it wasn't as good as my first one, but I attribute its shortcomings to several bad decisions and oversights on my part. This has potential. If you don't have any interest in keeping your New Year's resolutions, you can make a version of this for yourself. The first step was to get as much grease as possible out of the bacon for the pie crust while cooking the bacon to be part of the filling. I started with a pound of bacon in a 12-inch skillet with the heat on medium-low. Lower heat to decrease the risk of burning and increase the amount of fat that can melt out of it. I should have started in my narrower sauté pan. This one has a lot of surface area, which means more space for the bacon to burn, which is what it came close to doing, so I switched that over. Here there is less contact with the bottom and the bacon can fry better in the accumulating grease. I fried it until the bacon was crispy enough and there appeared to be enough grease to use for the crust. This time I was only making the crust as a topping, so I wasn't too worried about the quantity. I would have worked with what I had. Here's a half measuring cup for volume reference. This went into the freezer to deliquefy it for later use. I didn't bother cleaning the skillet because I intended to use the residual grease to fry my vegetables over medium heat. Problem was, it wasn't nearly enough for the combined 2 pounds of Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, and I ended up trying to mitigate the situation by putting a half stick of butter in after the fact when I should have let it melt and heat up before cooking the vegetables in the first place. And perhaps I should have cooked the cauliflower and sprouts separately to lower the risk of overcooking either of them. Once I started to see some browning on them, I put in a half cup of flour. That got stirred around and allowed to heat up. Then I turned the heat down and added some whole buttermilk little by little. It was 30 cents cheaper than a low fat. I'm trying to be thrifty here. I only put in a quart, but I eventually ended up putting in another 2 cups last minute, so 6 cups total. Now for seasoning. I put in 2 cranks of salt and a generous amount of pepper. Powdered garlic because I didn't want to create too much work for myself. And while I'm at it, dried dill. The dill and the buttermilk are going to give it the ranch flavor. Fresh dill would have been great, but the bunches they sell at the store are too big and I didn't have any uses in mind for the extra. So I considered this filling done at this point. Then I realized I should have prepared the crust before I started cooking the vegetables. I had to scramble to get this crust made, when ideally you want to let it sit in the fridge for about 30 minutes before rolling out. Alright, frozen bacon grease, cup of flour, blend, apply cold water, mold into a ball. I can at least let this sit here a few minutes while I get everything transferred to the baking vessel and start preheating my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I mixed in the bacon and noticed that I didn't have enough liquid, so there's the other 2 cups of buttermilk that I mentioned. I didn't even roll this crust out properly. I just flattened it into a bunch of pieces and threw them on top. I'm not trying to make it look like a real pie this time, so what the heck. That went into a 425 degree Fahrenheit oven for a whole hour, which is not what I wanted to do. I intended to drop it to 350 degrees Fahrenheit after 20 minutes, so this got overcooked. At least it looks good, but yeah, those sprouts are mush. We still ate it because we aren't picky, but there is a lot of room for improvement. Cooking this at the proper temperature would be a good start. However, I think the sprouts would be better cooked separately and served on the side. The way I cooked this, they got exposed to a lot of wet heat, which I suppose isn't ideal for them. The bitter flavor complements the bacon well, but the texture is just bad. This has a good flavor profile that was set back by a number of cooking errors. I give it a 3 out of 10.